Good evening, everyone. Broadcasting live, February 24th, 2016. Today we have a quote from the Samyutta Nikaya. It's a pretty awesome quote, one of those quotables. So in Pali we have Seyatapi Bhikkhave Kumbho Anadharo Suppavatiyo Hoti Sadharo Duppavatiyo Hoti. Bhikkhave, O bhikkhus, you who have seen the bhaya in samsara, the danger in samsara. Sayatapi kumbho, just as a pot. Anadharo suppavatiyo hoti. A pot, anadharo, without supports. Suppavatiyo hoti, is easily overturned. Sadharo duppavatiyo hoti, with supports, it is hard to turn over. Evameva ko bhikkhave cittang anadharang suppavatiyan hoti sadharang duppavatiyan hoti. Evameva ko, even so, bhikkhus, cittang anadharang, a mind without supports, suppavatiyan hoti, is easily overturned or upset. Sadharang duppavatiyan hoti, with supports, hard to upset. Koja bhikkhave jitasa adharo, and what, O bhikkhus, is a support for the mind? Ayameva aryo vatangiko mango. This very noble eightfold path. So the noble eightfold path is a support for the mind. The idea the Buddha is getting at here is that the eightfold noble path, the eight path factors, work together to support the mind. You can't have a path to enlightenment without all eight factors. If one factor is wrong, if you have a wrong view or wrong thought or wrong action, wrong speech, wrong action, wrong livelihood, wrong effort, wrong mindfulness, wrong concentration, suppavatiya, easily overturned. Mind is easily shaken. This idea of being unshaken, this is the essence of the Buddhist path. There's this idea of being invincible. I mean, it's the argument given against staying in samsara, against seeking out happiness in impermanent things, because that sort of thing is unstable. That sort of thing renders you unstable, vulnerable, vincible. I don't think it's such a word. As opposed to invincible. It probably comes from the Latin vinco, vincere, which is to conquer. Vincable would mean to conquerable. Invincible or invincible would mean to, I'm just guessing, not subject to being conquered. So the idea behind Buddhism is to find a unassailable, indisputable, the kind of state that you can't, that is free from danger, that has no opening for attack. So these are what the supports of the Eightfold Noble Path give. The claim is, through the practice of the Eightfold Noble Path, through keeping to the Eightfold Noble Path, if one perfects all 8 of these factors, right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, one is invincible. This supports the mind in all ways, that there is nothing that could break through the defenses, nothing could tip you over like a pot. Now, about the Eightfold Noble Path, you might ask, well, can I just use some of them, some of the supports, or can I work on one of the supports at once? It doesn't really work that way. And the Eightfold Noble Path is a lot more theoretical than it is practical, in the sense that it's important to know about these things. But in terms of practice, you don't just go about practicing one and then practicing the other, or so on. Perfecting one and then, okay, that one's perfect, let's go perfect the other. It's more that when you practice, your practice has to incorporate all 8 of these. So if you're practicing insight meditation and you're lacking one of those, then you can know that your practice is lacking. It's not that you actually have to practice all 8, right? In some ways, one way of looking at it is all you need is right view, and once you have right view, the other 7 follow along. Another way of looking at it is you start with mindfulness, and when you have mindfulness, then effort and concentration build up, and based on that, all the rest of the path factors. I mean, practically speaking, it's not so simple as practicing the Eightfold Noble Path. You have to understand each of the 8 and where they fit in, because it's not like you can say, oh, my livelihood is pure, so there I have purified livelihood. That's not really what it means. It just is part of those things that have to be abstained from, that are vulnerabilities. You need that support. All 8 are necessary. And they come through proper practice. It's actually not something you have to worry too much about, like, oh, am I missing one, or so on. It's good to see if you are missing one. But if you practice mindfulness, if you practice sati, if you cultivate the 5 faculties and balance them and then strengthen them, the Eightfold Noble Path will come by itself. The Eightfold Noble Path is really at the moment when you see clearly, when you just see perfectly for the first time. And it's one moment. The Noble Path, one moment, cuts the defilement and opens the door to Nibbana. Everything after that is fruit, is the fruition. But it's only one moment is the path. It's when everything comes together perfectly in that one moment. You're perfectly supported and the mind is able to break free. So, anyway, we had a couple of visitors this evening. A woman and her father came by to practice meditation. Her father, I probably made a mistake by teaching them walking meditation first, because I demonstrated walking meditation and her father said, oh, now he's had some kind of Scottish accent or something. He said, that's not really what we were expecting now, is it? And she said, well, that's exactly what I was expecting. But he wasn't having it. So I said, okay, you can just sit there and you don't have to do it. Probably should have taught them sitting meditation first. Would have been more palatable, I think. It's kind of cute. And he was hard of hearing as well. It was a bit. But yeah, so people are coming out. This some engineers or something, some group, no, not engineers. Anyway, or some class they want us to they want to hold a meditation class. Yeah, lots of interesting things. Of course, today was Wednesday, so I taught meditation in the gym. 3 new people and 3 or 4 old people. So people coming back every week, which is great. We must have had 8 people, 9 people maybe there today. And on Mondays people are coming. Fridays not so much, but then Fridays I do all day. This Friday I'll be doing all day 5-minute meditation lessons, as usual. So if you have questions, come on the Hangout.
Thank you, Pandit. I have a question.
All right, go for it.
So talking about perfections, I was just thinking about the 10 perfections the Buddha mentioned and how they relate. Do they relate to the moment of time, or are they different from these 8 perfections, which are not really called perfections?
Well, the word perfect is wrong. You shouldn't have used the word perfect because it's confusing. It's not what the word samma means. Samma doesn't mean perfect. It means right. I'm not even sure. I don't know the etymology, but it's always translated as right. Perfect, I don't think it has the sense of perfect. No, it means right. There's no question. This monk is the only. He's a really good monk, and as far as I know, he's on the right. He's a good guy, but he's got some odd translation styles. So yeah, he's translating samma as perfect. The 10 perfections, the word is parami or paramita. And it comes from the word para or parama. Parama means having nothing beyond, which means ultimate. So highest. So completions, maybe perfections works really well for a translation of parami, but means that which is the highest. Perfection, really.
Okay, thank you, Bhante.
Hi, Larry.
Hey, Bhante. Good evening.
Good evening. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks.
So I had an exam this afternoon in the Lotus Sutra. I had a chance to take it apart and criticize it.
I'd love to have heard that.
I wasn't that critical. You can't be. I mean, you got to be fair. We're scholars, so we can't be polemicists or yeah. But it's kind of disgusting. The Lotus Sutra kind of disgusts me.
I'm sorry. I haven't read it myself. Maybe I could look at it.
It's just so obviously, I don't know. It's hard to see them putting words in the Buddha's mouth. I mean, there's criticism that, well, that Pali Tipitaka, we don't know that the Buddha said all of it, and I'll agree that some of the commentaries may have taken liberties, but it's not so blatant, so I can't say one way or the other. This is pretty blatant. I mean, they've made up all sorts of new doctrines, and suddenly the Buddha's this, I don't know, some kind of angel up in heaven. Everybody in the class is confused, and I'm like, yeah, I understand your confusion. It's like, this is Buddhism? No, you know. So this is, for many of them, this is their first introduction to Buddhism, which is a shame because it's all messed up. But he's doing a good job of showing how it got messed up over the course of its movement to East Asia. I mean, I think he actually agrees with Mahayana principles, but Mahayana grew up in India, and the Mahayana in India is different from, I think, even the Lotus Sutra. The Lotus Sutra is Indian, but never really gained much ground in India. It gained a lot more ground in East Asia. But Buddhism in East Asia is an interesting phenomenon. They developed this idea that the Buddha has 3 bodies, so he's actually up in heaven, and in Nibbana, and on earth. And he comes to earth as it's just an illusion, his birth and his 45 years of teaching. And the 45 years of teaching is lies.
Wow.
That's what Upaya Kusala is. He lies in order to get us to the point where we can hear the truth. He tricks us into becoming arahants. Because that's the best we can do, because we're too deluded to understand that we all have to become Buddhas. That's what, I mean, I'm not making this up, and this isn't actually what the Lotus Sutra says, so I'm probably making a lot of Buddhists angry by saying this on the internet. But, you know, what does that ever stop me?
That's fair. Is this the same thing as the Heart Sutra?
Oh, I don't know. I think the Heart Sutra is better, actually. Isn't that the one where Rupang Shunyatang, isn't that the Heart Sutra?
I really can't tell. I'm sorry.
I think the Heart Sutra is... But the Heart Sutra, I don't like it because it's kind of sophistic. It's sophism. You know sophism? Like just sounding intelligent? Like it says, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. What the heck does that mean? And of course they say, you see, you're not Mahayana, so you don't yet understand. And I'm like, go away. I have no use for your sophism.
Okay.
It's just sounding... I mean, sure, anyone can sound... I should stop before I get in trouble. This is bad.
I had an experience like that, listening to a talk, I think. I don't know when
if you practice this, and then you go and hear people talk about emptiness, all sorts of craziness. Anyway, I shouldn't be too critical of other people's beliefs. I promise that I always promise that I won't do this. I won't go on and on about other people's practices and beliefs. That I do, don't I? I've criticized Christianity. I think I've gotten into Islam. Judaism, have I torn into Judaism yet? They're all garbage. They're all wrong. Just not the kind of thing you should say on the internet.
I mean, I like reading criticism, and of course criticism of our own tradition as well. I just put a link.
Yeah, we should criticize our own tradition as well. I'll be open to it.
So this is something I've been looking at, in case anyone was interested in criticism of the traditions. I found that interesting. It's a Danish page.
You know something that I didn't hear it all, but I caught part of a speech, and I want you all to know about this guy because I'm not supposed to be political. It's another thing we're not supposed to be. But there's this guy running for president of the United States, and he said something, I think it was last night or the night before, that was pretty awesome. I mean, maybe not Theravada Buddhist awesome, but pretty awesome nonetheless. Bernie Sanders. Does anybody know this guy, Bernie Sanders?
Huh?
He's very popular with a lot of the Democrats. Very. Maybe more so than Hillary Clinton. I think they are the two that are vying most closely for the Democratic nomination.
Right. He said, they asked him what his religion was, I think, and he says, my religion is that we're all in this together. When you hurt, when your child hurts, I hurt. No, that is something like that. Your child is my child is your child.
Wow.
Totally breaking down barriers about, it's basic. I guess it's a lot like the song Imagine by John Lennon, right? The idea that we're just people. I mean, I guess you could label him as a humanist. He believes in people, and he believes that when we stand together, when we come together, when we work together, good things happen. When we cooperate instead of, so he's a socialist, which means he believes in cooperation. I mean, that's absolutely. The big problem with capitalism is it's about competition, and it's based on the virtue of competing with each other, as opposed to cooperating, as opposed to working together for the greater good. And so he's all about breaking down barriers, breaking down walls, divisions, bringing people together for goodness. I mean, if you listen to him talk, he's honest. If you don't like what he says, you can't argue that this guy is a liar or a shyster, or, sorry, maybe that's a bad word, but he is Jewish, I think. Yeah, shyster is not a good word, I apologize. But, that kind of he's honest and sincere. You ask, does he want to help people, or did he just want to become president? No. This is a guy who is in politics because he wants to help people. I mean, how awesome is this? How long have we wished or hoped for such a person who wants to lead the people out of the goodness of his heart,
It doesn't exist very often, I can tell you that.
Doesn't exist. Do you know who are you?
Sorry, I've just joined, if that's okay. Hiya.
Do you know who Bernie Sanders is?
Yeah, I'm from the UK, and in my country, it's very competitive based. So it's very capitalist in this country. They want to get rid of free healthcare, which is not great. So
free healthcare here in Canada.
Yeah, they want to get rid of it because it's money.
That's the thing. I mean, what's Bernie Sanders' platform? He wants to, I don't know. I don't want to get into what he's giving people and so on, but to care about the fact that there are millions of people who can't get adequate health care. I mean, there's people who these people are my students. I have one student who was telling me his mother got sick, and he was basically having to choose between food and medicine and rent. I mean, living on a budget that you can't live off of. And the things he talks about these things. Who else is talking about these things and making them platform? There are people starving. There are children living in poverty in the richest country in the world. I guess United States is the richest country in the world. I don't know. There's an obscene number of people living in poverty who don't have health care, who can't get an education. He wants education to be free, which is really a no-brainer. I mean, to pull a bit of a pun, but I mean, education. Going back to school. I mean, I've been talking to students here and saying there are students here in Canada where it's heavily subsidized who still can't get an education, who still have to work 2 jobs just to be able to take classes, and as a result aren't learning what they should be learning because they're too tired, because they're too stressed. This is, I mean, maybe this is all worldly talk, but if we talk about helping people and people's spiritual well-being, goodness. Remember, Buddhism, all about goodness. And there's a lot of badness happening. There's a lot of greed, corruption, and just too much politicizing. People who are politicians just for their own benefit. They're bought by the rich elite, and they make lots of money giving speeches and holding these dinners and whatever. I don't know. I mean, guaranteeing that the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor. I mean, you can't argue with the facts. The fact is there's lots and lots of people who are very, very poor, and that hasn't changed and isn't changing. It's getting worse. Sorry, here comes Robin to tell me I'm ranting. Hi, Robin.
Hi, Bhante.
Robin can you can talk for yourself. I won't say anything you don't want me to say on the internet.
No, I'm here to say go Bernie.
You're in with Bernie, right?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
changed my party affiliation
You
today. I've
did.
been a Republican.
I was going to say she's a Republican, and we were talking about Bernie.
I changed so that I can vote for Bernie. He's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
He
Well, I
comes
think
about.
if you and I are any indication, he's got the Buddhist vote.
I think so.
Not that.
Well, he comes about as close to being what used to be referred to as a true statesman.
Uh-huh.
So many politicians are
Yeah.
just hay boys for corporate power and wealthy people, and he. It's amazing that he's been able to stay in office so long. I mean, you're in office by virtue of the votes of a constituency, so he must have a very enlightened constituency.
He has like 83% of approval rating in his state or something. 83 or more. It's just like, yeah.
In a poll that came out right after the New Hampshire primary, which he just won in a landslide, there was a poll where the question was, are the candidates trustworthy? Hillary Clinton had gotten like 5%, and he had 95%.
Right.
So no matter what you think of his policies, people do believe that he's telling you.
I mean, that's to me that's a very, very important point. Because before we talk about what he's promising, what's his character?
Yeah.
Because politicians promise everything. All the politicians promise what they think will get them elected. I bet he's guilty of that a little bit as well. He knows, well, I have to say this or I won't get elected, even though maybe he doesn't quite believe it. But there's not that isn't a huge question in people's minds, because they know he's sincere, and they know that the majority of what he at least the majority, if not all of what he stands for, he really stands for. And that's important. He's not tricking it. It's not deceptive.
He seems to be very much in favor of placing constraints on corporations and throttling corporations, which is so very much needed in this country. The corporate power and the very wealthy, powerful people that are running corporations is just horrendous, and he seems to be in favor of trying to deal with that, which would be really difficult, with because president has got to work with the Congress, and we've of course seen the Obama's difficulties working with the Congress that we have had the last few years, and it's just.
The other neat thing about him is he does work well with people. I mean, when you're that honest, he gets things done. He apparently has a record. People saying, well, how could he ever work? He's got a 40-year record, a long record of working with people, actually getting stuff done. I mean, that's it. You said it. He's a real statesman. The Republicans appreciate that.
Well, some of them can.
Well, some of them, sure, but he worked with. Anyway, I don't know. I just wanted to say, here's someone who is worthy of support.
We need someone out over here. Over in the UK.
Didn't you guys elect some socialist as well?
Well, we're like very capitalist over here, not very socialist. So we've got corporate businesses and strict guidelines and such. So it's not the kind of a society that I enjoy living in.
The UK has a history of
fierce competition.
In Denmark, you actually, as soon as you leave, what's it called, like primary school, I mean, as soon as you're not really a kid anymore, you're going to start getting paid to go to school, like for business school and university, and just enough to if you have a small apartment, and to get some food.
mean, it's really a no-brainer. What's the result of that? Is the result people who who are unproductive, and no, you have people who are intelligent. And the problem is rich people, well, not rich, but rich people are not all bad, but greedy, corporate, terrible people want people to be stupid. Well,
Yeah.
it's really, this is...
Isn't that like also like sophism as well?
Sorry?
Isn't that like sophism as well? Where some people hold to the knowledge and want to dumb down other people?
That's not, I think, what sophism means. Sophism is when you just try to sound intelligent. That's something else entirely.
Okay.
It's elitism or something, or I don't know. There's probably a word for it.
Okay.
But you know, I think there's one of the great things about America is that a lot of rich people do good things, right? I mean, those people who have gained power, like Bill Gates, for example. Apparently there's conspiracy surrounding him, so maybe he's a terrible person as well. I don't know. But the ideal of a person who gets very rich from something like Microsoft Windows or Microsoft, which is actually a terrible operating system, but then to use that money to, say, wipe out malaria or polio, or polio, which is a really terrible, terrible disease. So whether the facts, I don't know what the facts are, and criticisms of him particularly aside, there is a sense of rich people being charitable. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm being charitable by saying that. I don't know, but
no, definitely. Even like athletes and celebrities in the United States, they're very, very out in the open. With their foundations. Many people have their own foundations. They do good works. Maybe it's a little bit for publicity, but someone benefits from it anyway.
Well, and then I guess you have to ask whether it's systemic enough, whether it's as, whether it works as well, because I don't know. Some people argue that the government can't. The government is full of, waste and so on. Anyway, I don't want to get into all the politics of it, just the goodness of it. And here, supporting, I wanted to give a shout out to Bernie Sanders for his what seems to be awesomeness. As far as I can see, his heart is in the right place, and he walks the walk. He actually does do good things for people. He has done good things for people. He has helped people. Maybe he's a bodhisattva. Could be. Could very well be. Anyway.
He got Spike Lee's endorsement yesterday. That was
Sorry?
weird. He got Spike Lee's endorsement yesterday.
Who is Spike Lee? I've heard this name before.
He's a filmmaker.
Okay, right. I think I knew that. I don't know any of his films. Well,
he's big on the rap scene as well. Just to add in a little bit.
Okay. If I could endorse a political person, he'd have my endorsement as well. As it is, he has my respect.
How about spiritual endorsement? Is there such a thing? Like, thoughts?
He has my spiritual endorsement, absolutely. I endorse him to become... I should send him one of these books. Get Aruna to send him a guide to how to meditate.
Yeah, do that.
Maybe I'll write a letter to him as well.
Not a lot of people do that nowadays.
Sorry?
Not a lot of people write handwritten letters nowadays. That's it's an art form now.
Yeah, well, not when I write. Chicken and scratch is more like it.
Yeah.
You could also send him your lessons in practical Buddhism.
Yeah, I don't imagine he's got a lot of time or interest in reading. This one's kind of practical, so maybe it'll be... Maybe his wife will read it or something. Maybe he's less busy. He's just so busy, it seems, which is another awesome thing. I mean, he's tireless. He really... it seems, anyway. He's old. And very strong.
He probably eats healthy.
He what?
He probably eats healthy.
Right. Well, maybe he would like one of these. I'll send him a few maybe.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to say good night. Thank you all. It's good.
Thank you.
Night, everyone.
Hope to have to come up with something interesting to talk about every night like this.
Good night. Thank you, Bhante.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, all.